So last year, I did a discussional video on the 2018 Super Bowl beer commercials, because last year was a significant year for that. It included the first craft beer commercial aired during the Super Bowl ever. And some pretty interesting ones that caused a little industry shakeup. But this year, I wasn't overly impressed, so I wasn't going to make one. Yeah, the ASMR one was pretty good.
Let's all experience something together.
But if you don't know what that was, you would probably just be confused as hell.
You can feel it.
Bud Light put out one commercial that I definitely think is worthy of discussion though. And this one commercial in particular gained a ton of attention. Seriously, over the last few weeks, all I saw was a never-ending onslaught of news stories, jokes, memes, and topical video discussions on the matter.
The thing they say on Bud Light on their website is what? We. Hold on a second. Hello? I'm doing a live video right now, but I'm going to call you back. I'm doing a video about corn syrup and beer.
So I figured I might as well beat this dead horse to death even further with my vastly unique and never before heard opinion.
Better late than never, I guess. But first things first, let's take a look at the commercial.
And that's how you brew it.
My king, this corn syrup was just delivered.
That's not ours. We don't brew Bud Light with corn syrup.
Miller Lite uses corn syrup.
Let us take it to them at once. But if something did happen, we'd eat the wizard first, right?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, brewers of Miller Lite, we received your corn syrup by mistake.
That's not our corn syrup. We received our shipment this morning.
You're joking.
Try the Coors Light Castle. They also use corn syrup.
Can you smoke outside?
Oh, brewers of Coors Light, is this corn syrup yours?
Well, well, well. Looks like the corn syrup has come home to be brewed. To be clear, we brew Coors Light with corn syrup.
Bud Light, brewed with no corn syrup.
I mean, as a commercial, and only looking at it as a commercial, I think it's pretty dang funny, and I think it's pretty dang brilliant.
It does everything I want a commercial to do from a marketing standpoint. It highlights the product in a positive way. It bashes the competition in a non-legally threatening way. It entertained the target consumer base. And most importantly, they got everyone and their mom talking about it.
And just as a side note real quick, Anheuser-Busch is an expert at this shit. Every single year, they get people all riled up and in a little fussy fit about their Super Bowl advertising. First, it was the Brewed the Hard Way commercial. And now this. Stop falling for it, you bunch of goofuses. Anyways, this year's commercial stirred up a lot of interesting discussion around the community. So I think it's important that we kind of talk about this corn syrup issue. So, first off,
let's figure out what the hell corn syrup is anyway. Corn syrup is made from starch of corn and contains varying amounts of maltose extracted from the corn. Corn syrup is used in foods to soften texture, add volume, prevent crystallization of sugar, and enhance flavor.
So in layman terms, it's basically just a concentrated form of corn sugars in a syrup format.
Now, when looking at it through the context of brewing, it is used as a cheap way to get additional sugars into the beer to reach target gravity readings without the addition of extra fermentables such as grain or fruit sugars. It ferments clean, leaves no color, obvious smell, or taste changes to the finished product, similarly to how rice and actual corn adjuncts are used. From a nutritional perspective, It doesn't really offer anything to the finished beer besides some empty calories. However, it is highly fermentable, and if a brew undergoes a full fermentation cycle, reaching full attenuation, there really won't be much left anyways.
So, I mean, it really doesn't sound that bad. It sounds like it's actually a pretty useful tool to maintain consistencies, hit recipe corrections, or just, add a little bit of adjustment to your OGs. It sounds pretty useful to me. So that leaves the question, why did Bud Light use it as an insult? And why is everyone freaking out about it?
I mean, it is true that Miller and Coors both use corn syrup in the majority of their products. They openly admit it. And if Bud Light is to be believed, they do not. They use rice. And probably rice syrup instead.
Because, see, Bud Light uses rice and most likely rice syrup for the exact same purposes and pretty much to the exact same effect. So it's the blurred lines there, And you know what? Maybe, now that I think about it,
maybe the whole reason Bud Light did their whole nutrition label and ingredient list thing last month was in anticipation of this commercial, to further the deceit.
Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised.
this is exactly where this commercial takes a malicious turn. Anheuser-Busch, Bud Light, specifically tried to trick and confuse consumers into thinking that Miller and Coors used high fructose corn syrup
instead of just normal corn syrup. And that's kind of a big deal. Over the last decade or so, high fructose corn syrup has become the boogeyman of the nutrition world, even being called public enemy number one. And the majority of Americans believe that it could be the cause of basically all of their health problems. And this fear is exactly what Bud Light is preying upon.
And their core consumer base's ignorance.
And that's exactly the point Miller tried to make in their responsive blog post.
Let's set the record straight. Miller Lite has great taste, only 96 calories, and no high fructose corn syrup. Period. Miller Lite.
However, it doesn't really make a difference. See, high fructose corn syrup takes rather simple sugar chains and enzymatically changes them into a more complex form of sugar, and it is believed that it is much worse for you, and more likely to cause adverse health effects like obesity and diabetes. However, there isn't a whole lot of science behind that, and what science there is concludes that high fructose isn't really that much worse for you than just normal corn syrup, if at all. And most advise you to just totally limit the amount of sugar intake regardless of what form it comes in, so they're basically two sides of the same coin. But most Americans aren't aware of that, and aren't going to take the time to read up on the topic. And instead, they're going to cling to the buzzwords.
And when they see the words corn and syrup side by side, without context, they're going to freak the fuck out. And I think that's where the majority of outrage about this commercial really comes from. Deceit. On one hand, I kind of think a lot of people are just shocked to find out that Bud Light doesn't actually use corn syrup. Kind of ruins their preconceived notions of the big bad.
Or maybe they were just mad that corn syrup is definitely used in other beers under the Bud Light portfolio. I mean, this ashamed corn bashing even got the Corn Farmers of America upset because they felt Bud Light was painting corn in a negative and untruthful light.
Are you genuinely outraged at that ad?
Yeah, for sure. It was an attack against corn farmers, and it was a misleading ad that, it felt like it was a punch in the gut in a time of a tough farm economy. And the last thing I wanted to be doing was...
What's misleading about it?
It implies that that corn syrup is a inferior ingredient, and it attacks my industry. It attacks the things that corn growers do, and a safe product for years that's used in many different foodstuffs.
Which even made Bud Light backtrack on their statements a little bit. I was a little shocked about that, not gonna lie.
But I feel like we've gotten way off topic here. Regardless of how you feel about corn syrup, in the context of beer and beer brewing, it doesn't really make that big of a deal. There's nothing really wrong with it. You could see it as a shortcut, And you could see it as a way for big beer to continue to cut corners and serve an inferior product, or whatever, to expand their profit margins. But I think that those who do use corn syrup, particularly Miller and Coors, use it to maintain consistency between batches.
Because that's what their customer base looks for, expects, and demands. It's how they've built such a loyal fan base over the decades of operations that they've experienced. And if you think this is a big beer issue only, you're sorely mistaken. Plenty of craft brewers utilize corn syrup to deliver the same quality and experience that you're paying for. And also, you all bitch and moan when a brewery goes all natural and has inconsistency between batches, so they gotta do what they gotta do, and you need to make up your damn minds.
So no, corn syrup is not bad for beer.
And at least no worse than all those artificial adjunct extracts that you all lose your minds over in your new hype releases.
So was Bud Light being deceitful? Yes. Were they being malicious? Yes. But that's what they do. They're a bunch of dicks that way. And they're in a highly competitive market, so I think they thought they needed to do what they needed to do, and that's make a little bit of a little lie in a Super Bowl commercial for the whole world to see now.
And sometimes that means making a commercial that, regardless of factuality or clarity, will get people talking and get the attention back on them. And that's exactly what they did.
So stop falling for it, you bunch of goofuses. So that's pretty much all I got to say on this topic. So thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate all the love and support I've been seeing here lately. It makes my heart swell and makes me all misty-eyed. But seriously, thank you all very much. I really appreciate it. So like, comment, subscribe. Remember, every bottle has a story, and that life is birdful. Cheers.